All right, hello everybody. It is Lizzie here from Zero to Revenue, and I'm joined by Ashley. Hey, Ashley.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited for the chance to let you share your story. So just a wee introduction first to our viewers who might not have had the chance to meet you before. So Ashley Baxter is building with Jack, and you guys are a platform that helps keep freelancers in business. I know that you really enjoy sharing your experience of how you bootstrapped your business. You're a solo founder, and it's one of the largest and toughest startup friendly industries in the world. So I'm really keen to kind of hear your experience on that. And for any first time founders or entrepreneurs that we have watching, I'm sure they're going to take away quite a lot from you speaking today. So Ashley, give us a wee introduction and tell us more about With Jack.
Yeah, so even though I pitch With Jack as a platform that helps to keep freelancers in business, what it really is right now is business insurance for freelancers. So we have a range of products that are designed to help keep freelancers in business, whether that's helping them with unpaid invoices or providing legal advice or even legal experts if clients are unhappy with them. Obviously, the mention of insurance can turn a lot of people off, but don't worry, we're going to make this as interesting as possible. So a lot of people do say to me, why are you working in insurance? Because I also had the option to be a full-time professional photographer and I chose insurance. And my background in insurance goes way back 14 years. I was working in buy-to-let insurance. Insurance is boring, landlords are boring. Buy-to-let insurance was just not for me. But one of the things that I did learn from being in the industry in that time was that there was a lack of focus on design and technology from insurers. So insurers weren't investing money into their technology. Everything was this was going back years ago, things are getting better, but everything was very just backwards and behind the times. And I loved design and tech. I had a bit of experience as a self-taught programmer, and I've always appreciated good design, even though I myself can't design. And so I decided that I wanted to start my own insurance company and sort of create a brand with great design and tech at its core. And the reason that I chose freelancers, well, there were various reasons actually. There was no insurance providers really focusing on freelancers at the time. The market is considered quite small, so they want to go after bigger fish. And also I had actually, it's quite difficult getting started in insurance. So I decided to start things really simply with, by signing up as an affiliate for an insurance broker. And I built this really simple website. It did have a great, very striking brand that looked different to anything else in insurance at the time. But all we were doing was getting people to land on this website. And when they were ready to buy insurance, they would click this button to get a quote. We would take their email address and then we would send them to the insurance broker's website. And so whilst that meant that I wasn't actually powering any of the customer journey, it helped me build a profile of the kind of customer that was wanting to use this service, because this landing page that I built, I hadn't actually positioned it to freelancers. I just kept it quite broad and said, hey, we're business insurance. So it could have been for freelancers, it could have been for micro SMEs, it could have been for tech startups. And because I was taking their email address before sending them to the insurance broker, it meant that I collected hundreds and hundreds of websites to visit, about 300 of them in fact. And I sat and looked through all of them, and the kind of people that were wanting to use this service, it was overwhelmingly freelancers. So that's how I kind of moved into that space. It just made sense. These were the people that were wanting to use this type of service, and no other insurer was targeting them at the time. So that's how I got started. Now, with this landing page that I built, I wouldn't exactly call it a business. It was more of an experiment. Insurance is a really tough industry to break into. You know, the costs of, it's a regulated industry. So there are a lot of barriers to entry, and the costs of getting into it are really high. So if you're starting your first business like I was, it's just, I think I'm not the biggest risk taker. So for me, it felt too much of a risk to pay £15,000 and then wait 12 months for my business to the application from the Financial Conduct Authority to be approved. It was a bit too risky. But after validating that, you know, freelancers were wanting to use this service through that landing page and making a little bit of money doing it, I decided that I would dip my toe in a little bit further. So the next stage from that was to go from an affiliate, which meant that I had zero control over the customer journey. I had zero relationship with the customers that were buying through the website. Went from being an affiliate to an appointed representative. And what that meant was I now had a little bit more control over the whole experience. I was able to build my own tech, and I was able to create my own customer journey. And I was also able to build a relationship with my customer, which I think is the most important thing in business. You can't build a business if you're not speaking to your customers every single day and learning from them. And I couldn't do that as an affiliate because I didn't know who my customers were. We were just passing them on to someone else. So that was a big step up. And I operated as an appointed representative for 2 years. And it still meant that I could bypass the whole authorization compliance side of insurance because I was operating under somebody else's authorized business. But then the caveat was that they would take 30% of my earnings, which as I grew started to amount to quite a lot. But again, that 2 years of operating as an appointed representative was really educational as well. I was able to, I'd always known that with the landing page that we'd built in the beginning, I always knew that if I had more control over the customer journey and was really able to build and create my own brand from when somebody lands on the site through to completing their purchase, that I knew I could build a business. And I was proven to be right, because when I was finally able to create all of the tech myself, I ended up, you know, we got to about 400 customers as an appointed rep and was able to build the business to profitability. Now, I've never taken funding or anything like that, and which is another reason why I decided not to become authorized from day one, because of how much it cost. That just would have been too much as a self-funded startup. And I guess I should probably say how I funded everything. But as after 2 years of operating as an appointed rep, I decided it was time to become directly authorized, because this would again give me another step up in the business. I would now be able to handle client money and just again have even more control over everything. But you know, it cost £15,000 and it was a 6-month application process. And although we were profitable by this point, I still didn't have that kind of pot of cash just sitting there, because everything that the business was earning was going back into developing the products and improving the customer journey, speaking to customers and learning what their frustrations were, and then iterating on the customer journey and the products. So I had, luckily, I had funded the next stage of the business through doing freelance photography. So I'd been a freelance photographer for about 7 years, and originally with no intention of ever using that money to actually go off and start a business, but had been doing it for 7 years, had saved up a ton of money from it, mostly weddings, but also some commercial stuff. And when it came time to start the business, become authorized and take that next and final step, I was able to use the money that I'd earned from wedding photography to fund all of that. So it funded the compliance costs, you know, the application fees. It funded a lot of the initial design and development costs. And last year was my final year doing freelance photography. So technically this year, 2019, is actually the very first year that I've been focusing on with Jack full time. So that's been, now I'm going into my third year. So it's actually taken 3 years of building this business and doing photography and various other things to make money on the side before getting to the point where I could focus on it full time. So it's been quite a long journey.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And there's so much to unpack in your journey there that I'd love to get into. And I think to start with, I'm really interested to hear more, I guess, especially because of your eye for photography. What method or what impact did your eye for design and your interest in, hey, I need to innovate around design, especially in the space that you're working in with, how did you find that particularly impacted in those early days?
I think it really helped because I think that although the insurance industry has changed a lot in recent years for the better, when I first got into it and was thinking about how there wasn't really any innovation around design or tech, having that eye for design, even though I myself can't design, but just having that eye for it really helped me create a brand that stood out and looked completely different to anything else. So like I said, even that landing page that we built, that landing page would have been 2014, so 5 years ago. Just having it, the brief that I gave my designers was that I want this to look nothing like anything else in insurance. So it can't be corporate. We don't want it to be blue. You know, we don't want stuffy terminology. We want it to be fun and engaging to attract that sort of creative demographic that freelancers generally are. So I think that that's where, I think that just having that eye for design helped create a brand that initially did look completely different to anything else. And that helped a lot of people take notice of us when we first launched, because I didn't have funding, I didn't have a lot of money for marketing, so it really was just having to try and capture people's attention as quickly as possible, and just looking a bit different to everything else in the industry really helped us do that.
So can you tell me more, because I love how you've broken it down into how important that customer validation was, and then stressing, like, if you're not speaking to your customers every day, then you can't possibly know and understand their problems. How much of that journey has been kind of realized as you've gone on? And now you talked about, you know, we're doing a lot of other things. You were obviously having to earn and live, and now you're focusing on with Jack. How much of that do you kind of see, and is it easy to answer, you see in retrospect? Whereas at the time, how did it actually feel?
So do you mean, like, at what point did I realize how important it was to talk to my customers? Or is that what you mean?
More like the process. Did you deliberately know, right now I'm doing customer validation, now I'm stepping up to the next stage and I'm speaking with each of my customers and I'm understanding who they are? That's definitely how we tell it when we go through the journey in retrospect. Yeah. How did it feel at the time? Was it an experiment, or did it feel like, was it headless chicken world? Like, what did that feel like?
So I knew that it was something that I needed to do from day one, because I'd had a terrible experience trying to build another business before that where I hadn't done any customer development stuff. Right. So about 6 years ago, I built a SaaS app for landlords, which is crazy because I'm not a landlord and I just didn't really understand that customer segment. And what I really should have done was speak to them and see if what I was making was something that would solve the problems that they had. I didn't even know what problems they did have because I wasn't talking to them. And I'd worked with a designer on creating this app. I built it and they designed it. So it cost thousands of pounds to work with them to make it look great. And it really did look great. But it took me 9 months to build it. So 9 months after building this app, we launched, and nobody ever used it. I made £0 in revenue because I hadn't spoken to the user segment. I hadn't discovered what problems they had as landlords and then created the solution for it. So when it came time to creating with Jack, I knew that I had to take a completely different approach. And so everything has been incredibly iterative. Like at the time, kind of with this landing page, not really knowing who our target audience was going to be, but then off the back of that, finding out it was overwhelmingly freelancers. And then with the next iteration, all of the copy, all of the messaging was positioned to freelancers. And then part of that entailed me as well pulling out parts of the insurance products that are most relevant to freelancers and learning how to talk to them in a way that it resonates with them. There's a great book that I'd recommend that really helped me learn how to do customer development, and it's called The Mum Test. Have you heard of it? Have you read it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it really is, because but a lot of us make the mistake when we're talking to customers, because we get so excited about our ideas and we really do believe we're on to the next big thing, and we can
actually, you definitely need this in your life. You know that you need it, right? You know that you need this, right?
Exactly. You're influencing the kind of responses and answers you get, and then you make yourself think that what you're doing is the right thing. So I recommend reading that, and that's something that's helped me learn how to talk to my customers. So yeah, after relaunching with positioning to freelancers, that's still not the job done. So
right.
from there, we're still having to figure out what problems they're having in their lives that insurance and with Jack in general can help them solve. And you're constantly doing it. It's why I say to people, I really do believe that if you're building a business, you have to do it for a user segment that you are interested enough in. Ask yourself, can I see myself having coffee with this person every day for the next 10 years? And for me, with the Landlords app, could I see myself talking to landlords for the next decade? No.
Right.
But freelancers, people who are, web designers and developers trying to create businesses for themselves, yes, I love talking to them. And so that's something that I would recommend anybody think about before they start the business. Is like, do I find this user segment interesting enough that I'm prepared to talk to them every day for the next 10 years? And obviously 10 years is just an arbitrary figure, but what I mean is it takes such a long time to build a successful business that you have to want to talk to them for a very long time.
I love the way you framed that, because instead of the traditional fall in love with the problem, you're saying the problem's going to change, fall in love with the people you're going to have to listen to, and they're going to tell you how that problem changes. You're going to be able to help solve that.
Yeah, absolutely. I applied to join an accelerator. I wasn't accepted onto it, but that was one of the very first things they said to us all. They were like, all of you in here, you have this idea, but I can guarantee that by the time you come out of the accelerator, the problem you're solving is going to be completely different. And I really struggled in the beginning with understanding what problem I was solving, because I spoke about how I had this fascination with improving design and tech and insurance, and how I built a nice customer journey. And yes, that did help improve conversion rates and get more signups. But what I failed to realize through all of that is that freelancers, when they're shopping for insurance, yes, it helps things to have nicer onboarding, but they're not shopping for insurance based off the back of what tech stack and insurance companies built their website on. So I've had to learn a lot myself about figuring out what problem we're solving. And again, that's all come through customer conversations, and not just conversations as well. But another thing I recommend doing is getting onto the subreddits of your particular market. So I spend a lot of time on the freelance subreddit, and I see that, what freelancers are constantly asking questions about or having problems with, and then seeing how we can help them with that. And through a combination of customer conversations and also just stalking Reddit, I realized that we weren't really solving a problem by creating a nicer customer journey, but what we are doing is creating a platform that helps to keep freelancers in business. And that is solving a problem. Problems with unpaid invoices, problems with unhappy clients. That's why we're here. So I would say for people, when they first start a business, don't worry too much about what your original idea is, because that idea can change over time, and that will change as you're speaking to your customers and iterating on the product. So don't be too precious about your original idea. Allow yourself to kind of go on this journey of exploration.
Right. And speaking to that point, how did you feel when at each of these pressure points or decision points you had to say, hey, but this is what the customers are telling me, so I do need to separate from, it needs to be perfectly designed, or it needs to be the perfect flow. How do you settle with good enough? How does good enough feel to you?
I think I've actually always been pretty good at settling for good enough, because I am bootstrapped. It means that I have had to cut a lot of corners in terms of the features that we launched with, the products that we launched with. So for example, with Jack was incredibly bare bones when I launched. We launched with just one product and I was manually processing everything. So quotes would come in, I'd process them, send them back to the customer. They would say, yes, I want to buy. I'd process the sale. And if I compare that to my competitors who are all VC backed, they've launched with all the features, all the products, and the whole product has been perfectly polished. And yet I'm the one that's still in business after all this time. And I would say I'm not quite sure why that is, but I think that it just goes to show that all of the polish and all of the pixel perfect things that we want aren't as important to our customers as they are to us. So as long as you're like, you are solving a problem, but you're also communicating it in a way that really speaks to your target market, you're going to do a better job than the person who maybe does have a better product, but they don't know how to communicate it effectively. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. You've given two really good examples there of, instead of just building what you think that they want, concierge it, right? So do it in whatever way you need to by putting up a front, and then in the back shop, you're running around making that work. So you did that with your landing page to validate that there was a need initially. And then just there, you were describing how you were working in the back end, making something happen. Do you think that people too often jump to, well, I need funding so that I can put this amount of money to build the app, and I have nothing to prove that this will work or that there are customers who need it?
Yeah, and I know that I just said there when I was talking about how my competitors have launched with pixel perfect products, and I haven't, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was that's meant that I've actually been able to build my business into a profitable business. Actually, now that I think about it, it probably is because I had to do everything manually in the beginning. Therefore, I had to have hundreds of customer conversations. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but that's what's really helped me understand my customer. So, you know, we launched with one product, manually processing everything. And then from all of these conversations, I started to identify other products that people were coming back to me and asking for. And if they were just buying their policies online in a system and they saw that we didn't have those products, they would probably just abandon the process and leave. But because I was manually processing everything and engaged in conversation with them, I was hearing what we didn't have that they needed, or what they wanted us to do better or differently. So actually, I think that I would 100% recommend to anybody who's wanting to start a business to ask yourself, instead of launching with this perfect product with all the features, ask yourself, is there a way that we can do this manually to test the water? So, you know, I'm not the only person who sat and manually processed things in the beginning. Even Stripe, they were manually, what was it they were doing? They had launched merchant accounts and were manually adding users behind the scenes. Or there's DoorDash, who instead of building an app in the beginning that allowed restaurants to talk to customers, or customers to choose what food they wanted from the restaurants and vice versa, they were just getting the order from the customer, manually going to the restaurant and collecting it and delivering it to the customer. And, you know, Buffer, they launched without a payment solution and they were just manually putting sales through themselves. So that's how I think that it helps you launch quicker. It helps you launch on more of a budget. which is obviously important if you're bootstrapped and you don't have a ton of funding. Obviously, it's a different story if you do have funding, but I still think that it's worth asking yourself, can we do this manually before building the tech to automate it? Because you will learn so much more from the customer insights that you get.
Yeah, that's great. And what's an example of, have you been down a particular route, whether it was almost building out one particular feature and you've heard feedback from customers and changed tack because of that?
Not with this business, no. I've done a pretty good job with Jack so far of building very slowly and learning from customers what they want. With that said, we've launched a new product this week that nobody's ever come to me and asked for. So sometimes you do have to make your own judgment and say, I know that you're the customer and you know what you want best, but actually I think that this is something that you could use. And because I've just launched this week, I've yet to figure out if it does work or not. But no, so far it's been very, I've done quite a good job of just building very slowly, listening, and then iterating based on that feedback. So yeah, I've not had any problems yet, but I'm sure I will in the future, because what With Jack is going to do is we're moving away from just being insurance, because we want to be a platform that helps to keep freelancers in business. And one of the things that I want to do is provide support and knowledge to my community of freelancers. So we're going to be building in features that enables that, but it might be that we get to a point where we've built it and we realize actually this isn't something that users want. However, I'm going to take my own advice, and start on a very small scale with a limited segment of users and see what the uptake is, or see what the engagement is, and then move on. So actually, I hate to blow my own trumpet, but I've been quite good at just doing things very slowly and listening to the customer.
I think what you've really explained there is that, yeah, you said, sorry for the repetition, always coming back to the customer, but you've shown that everything that you do is an experiment, is an iteration, is listening to that feedback loop, which means that you're moving at a pace that you can always be planning and listening for the next round of what you're going to implement. So what does success look like for the new build that you've just released?
Well, so I think that this new product, you're talking about the new product we launched this week, yeah. So I think that this will really inch With Jack closer to product market fit, because with the products that we currently have, we're finding that a lot of people are buying them just because they just need to check that box, like, yes, I'm insured, or the clients ask them for insurance and they just get it because of that, and they don't really understand the value of it. And trust me, I'm really trying my hardest to educate freelancers about the value of insurance. I think insurance is the most underappreciated thing in the world. I love it so much. But so with this product, it really helps solve problems that freelancers are facing on a very consistent basis, because with our other products, it really is more of a, well, this might happen scenario. A customer might be unhappy with your work and threaten to sue you. But with this new product, it's things like, a lawyer will chase overdue invoices for you. And I know most freelancers do have overdue invoices. Or the product will cover your loss of earnings if you get called for jury duty, which is a fear a lot of freelancers have, because if you're not working, you're not earning. So I really believe that, there's a 24/7 legal advice helpline, and freelancers don't want to think about stuff to do with contracts, terms and conditions, but just having a product or a service where they can pick up the phone and ask a question is really helps. So I think this new product will inch us towards product market fit. So obviously, for what I would consider this to be a success is if our 500 existing customers want to bolt it onto their existing policy, then I know that it's really something that they want. But also I'm hoping that this is a product that can help drive more customers to us, because people are seeing the more immediate value from these products as opposed to our other products. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And it sounds like you couldn't really have conceived the idea of the product that you just launched way back in the beginning when you were thinking of insurance policies, because you didn't know that chasing outstanding invoices was necessarily that big an issue, or having terms and conditions or someone that you could phone up any time of day was that big an issue. So it sounds like this kind of more all singing, all dancing solution has come about because of that journey you've taken.
100%. And again, the freelance subreddit has been really helpful for figuring out what the most common problems freelancers face are, because yes, freelancers can come to me and say, I have this problem, can my insurance help me with that? But actually what we're finding is that most freelancers would prefer to go onto their own communities like Facebook groups and Slack groups and subreddits and ask their peers for advice as opposed to their insurer. So again, just spending time in these communities, the Facebook groups, the freelance subreddits and whatnot, and seeing how consistent people are saying, help, a client hasn't paid me and I don't know what to do, and do I go to small claims court? Just seeing how often that's happening made me realise how important this product is. But yes, when I first started the business, I would never have known that.
Right. So I think there's definitely some standout takeaways from what you've just discussed today, right? So one, we're not necessarily falling in love with the problem, but with the segment that you're wanting to be speaking to for the rest 10 plus years. What would be another takeaway that you would highlight?
I would also say my big advice for founders is, firstly, I know that it's quite boring, but before you spend too much time writing a line of code, make sure you are speaking to your user segment as much as possible, and read the mum test so that you learn how to talk to customers instead of influencing their answers. I would also say that another takeaway would be to not worry too much about launching with a perfect product for various reasons. Mostly because I think that one thing that I found from not launching with all singing, all dancing features is that when you launch something, okay, there's a big buzz surrounding it, you get this big spike of traffic, a lot of people are paying attention and taking interest, but inevitably that tapers off and things plateau. Whereas if you actually just launch with one very useful feature and hold things back for miniature launches, then you can recreate that launch effect various other times in your product lifecycle. And so I think that that's been really helpful for me, because again, like my competitors have launched with everything and people pay attention for however long that sort of launch buzz lasts and then lose interest, whereas I've been able to sort of recreate that launch buzz several times by having these smaller product launches. So don't worry about launching with a perfect product. Just, I would say, do one thing well to begin with and then iterate on it and use those iterations, kind of treat them as miniature product launches to create some buzz again around your product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. That's a pretty good summary of quite a fab conversation. So thank you so much for your time today. And just to round off, how can people find you, follow you, learn more about with Jack?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at I am Ashley. I'm pretty active on there. I'm also trying to grow my newsletter, so let me plug that. iamashleigh.co.uk/newsletter, and then you can check out With Jack at withjack.co.uk, and we will help you be a confident freelancer.
Love it. On that note, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you all later. Bye.
Bye.